Hello and welcome to Talent Acquisition Trends and Strategy. I'm your host, James Mackey, and today we are joined by Khurram Muhammad. Khurram, welcome to the show.
Yes, appreciate it, James. I appreciate you inviting me on today.
Yeah, man, thank you for joining us. And would you mind just sharing a little bit about your background experience so everybody knows your point of impact?
Yeah, definitely. I'll give you the quick elevator pitch. So my name's Khurram Muhammad, based out of New Jersey. I've been in talent acquisition for maybe, I lose track of time as time goes along, probably about 8-9 years now. Really grew up in the industry, starting on the agency side of the business, working in recruitment agencies for a good couple of years, learning the foundation of sales, learning the foundation of recruitment, candidate acquisition, business development, and client relationships. From there, kind of made my way up and transitioned over to the startup environment. Being with Vettery for a bit, which is a hiring platform, and eventually having my first step into in-house talent acquisition recruitment, working for a healthcare startup called Pager, which was my first in-house recruitment experience to kind of get a good feel of the other side of the world, and transitioning to where I am now with Maisonette, which is a luxury brand e-commerce startup that I've been with for almost a year and a half now. And I've been around the block for a minute, seen a lot of experiences, but loving it every day.
That's great. That's great. And I know, so right now your company is, you would consider in the e-commerce space, right?
Yep. So I'll give you a little bit of an overview about what Maisonette does. So we are a luxury brand e-commerce startup that caters specifically towards children's clothing and accessories. So essentially what we're looking to do is to become the one-stop shop for everything a family might need for their young children. So essentially, we have all different categories of the life cycle of a child. So think about like toys, apparel, clothes, everything kind of across the board within different categories. And that's what we focus on here as a business, to really create an easier way for a parent to raise their child. Sure. The business is really, really cool, based in New York City, and we work with dropship vendors as well. That also what makes our business unique, is we don't have any brick and mortars. We're all online, all e-commerce. So we work with dropship vendors, and we have our own private label brands within the business as well.
So what are you seeing right now in e-commerce? Because I think that that's a really interesting insight to share, as it, I think, has bigger implications on macroeconomics and what we're seeing right now in the economy. I mean, are you seeing like spending kind of decrease and therefore growth decrease right now in the industry? Or are you seeing talent acquisition holding strong, hiring growth holding strong? Like what are you experiencing right now?
I think it's a little bit of both, to be honest with you. A little bit of both for sure. Like, great example is about a year or so ago, when I first joined the business, it was still in the height of COVID per se. So like e-commerce going crazy, no one going to stores, people buying everything that they need for their children or their families or their pets or whatever, all online. Obviously, as time has gone along, stores, everything has started to open up again. So things have begun to shift a little bit further, but we're still seeing a good uptick, still seeing, because people still want to buy very, very nice luxury things for their children. People are never going to stop having babies. So, we're continuing to see a lot of great uptick there. But one of the challenges that we're seeing within the world of e-commerce, and everyone who's in e-commerce is seeing these, is supply chain issues. That was a big thing happening during COVID. And even to this day, it's still upside down. There's still a lot of issues there. So I would say a little bit of both.
So from the supply chain standpoint, is that something that you're seeing, your company's seeing getting better, or is it literally just as bad as it was a year ago?
I would say it's still pretty bad. It's been getting better, and that's where we're putting different plans in place and putting in resources to our operations teams. We're trying to really develop different ways that we can help affect supply chain for the future of Mason and the future of the business. So I would say it's definitely not perfect by any means, and definitely not what it was pre-COVID, but the company is definitely trying to adapt.
Sure. So how does all this impact talent acquisition? I mean, how competitive is the e-commerce space right now? Is it really a tough fight for top talent where people are receiving several offers, or what are you seeing from that perspective?
100%. 100%. The market is crazy, like absolutely crazy, because you have a number of different competitors and different types of organizations that are out there that are doing different things. So we are a startup, 100+ people, New York City based, can hire people 100% remotely. There are other organizations that are out there that might be larger corporations, offer more resources, offer more different pieces of business that Maisonette may not be able to offer. So with every type of role, because I hire within all different disciplines within the business. So think about like marketing, BD, finance, creative, engineering, product management, everything you can think of across the business. We're seeing candidates get multiple offers, multiple paths of life that they can take, and trying to hire them. So it's always tough, always a challenge.
So how do you stand out? What's your talent strategy, particularly when you're coming up against these larger competitors?
Definitely. So one of the biggest one that we really stand out for is, it's a few things. It's the mission of the organization. Really helping parents navigate that paternal journey is really something beautiful to be a part of, whether or not you have children, because we see kids in our lives every single day. We empathize our culture, because we are really trying to create an environment that everyone feels safe within. If you play around with Maisonette's website, you'll see a DE&I report that really showcases the importance of diversity, equity, and inclusion, and really how impactful that is for our business. And that's one thing that I've noticed that people really, really love. They love to be a part of something, whether they come from a diverse demographic or not. They want to be able to build upon that type of culture. So that's something that we really try to empathize here within our business. And then lastly, the opportunity for growth. We offer equity. We offer great opportunities for people to really learn and grow and have a lot of ownership, whether you're coming from a big organization where you feel siloed and you feel stuck in your ways and you want to do more, or if you're coming from another startup and just want to try a different type of environment. We offer those few things that really help us stand out, and people always, seem to really love that aspect of the business as well.
For sure. Yeah. I just pulled up the DE&I report, and it's cool too. You have it like as its own separate thing. Is it also, can you access it from the careers page as well, or is it just like its own?
I think it's just its own thing. You can definitely try, but it might be just, if you scroll to the bottom of the page, it just redid our careers page. Our careers page is actually new now. So I'm not sure if it's updated to get to the DE&I report from there, but you can definitely get it from our website.
That's cool too. You got a diverse leadership team as well.
Definitely. Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Very much so. Very much so. Diverse leadership team. Company's female is women founded as well, like from the background of it. So definitely.
Nice. Yeah, I really love that you put your people initiatives and DE&I initiatives right on the site, and it's cool because it talks a little bit about your values, what matters, and then also what your focus is going to be over the next 18 months. Which it just, I think that just brings a lot of I don't know, certainty is the right word, but to people's minds that you're actually acting on what you say is important, right? So that's really cool, and you actually list out all the stats, current and goal.
100%. And it's not easy by any means, especially for Maisonette, because the industry that we tend to work within, may not always be the most diverse. So attracting diverse talent to our environment it's always a challenge. It's never easy. It's never going to be easy, but we just try to empathize how we're trying to be different and what we're trying to do here.
And this is really interesting. I have not seen this before. Executive coaching for your C levels on diversity, equity, inclusion, between 2 to 4 hours, customized for the need of each executive on diversity, equity, inclusion. That's really interesting. I have not seen that before.
Definitely. Yeah, it's something really unique that they were doing before I started with the business, and something that they just really empathized last year. So, because obviously each executive or department lead is hiring for their team below them. So they all need to be trained to understand how to, recruit, and more importantly, how to build an environment where different inclusive people can feel, welcomed.
So another thing that I think goes above and beyond that I haven't seen before, content and creative. So in terms of the marketing collateral that you're creating for customers, a lot of the content has diversity, equity, inclusion kind of built into the topics, like 4 important things to know about autism, or neurodivergence, or celebrating people, coming from certain backgrounds. I mean, you really have a robust program in place to really speak out in terms of inclusivity and diversity. And you're pushing that out. It's not just like an internal effort for, headcount goals, right? Of getting percentages right. It's what you're also pushing out into the world, which is really interesting and cool.
100%, man. Like, and don't get me wrong, it's definitely not easy. It took a lot of work to get here. And obviously there's always things that we can do better upon, but definitely things that, I've enjoyed a lot about this business.
For sure. And so the other thing that you discussed is just, providing equity, and then just providing a great place to learn and grow. What's that strategy look like? So how does your team, how do you make it a great place to learn? Is there certain efforts from an L&D perspective? You're investing a lot in that. Is it the onboarding experience? Is it having an experienced leadership team, workshops? I mean, how do you enable that?
So I think it's a little bit of a mixture of all of them. And these are things that we're continuously to work on. So basically a part of what we tend to offer to people within here as well are like opportunities to learn different things. So if there are like conferences that you want to attend, events within the space that will help you with your furthering your career, then that's something that Maisonette wants to also get involved in. We have an onboarding process here where people who join the business get a good overview of the business, learning about the company. We meet for all teams almost every other week at this point, talking about business leadership and things going on within the business as a whole. So it's just really giving opportunity for people and having them create opportunities as well. If there are different things out there that they feel would help them out.
For sure.
And
For
again,
sure. It's.
Oh, sorry. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut you
Oh,
off.
no, go ahead.
No, I was saying this is one that's continuously being a work in progress as well.
Yeah, for sure. It's I talk about this a lot in the tech industry, but I think it just applies across the board is, companies really cannot expect to attract top talent if they're not providing opportunities for people to grow. So, a lot of people, particularly if they're excited about joining a startup and they're a good fit for a startup or an early growth stage company, the reason why they're going to a startup or growth stage company is to make an impact and to learn a ton and grow in their career. So if, companies that have the philosophy, okay, we want to hire somebody that's done like 95% of the job before, they're really not going to be able to, they're going to cut themselves off from a large portion of the talent pool. And, most of the guideline I share with customers, unless it's like there are some differences if it's like a senior level strategic position, but generally speaking, the guideline I provide to our clients and companies we advise is, 70-30. Get somebody who has 70% of the core skill set, give them that 30% of growth, and you're probably going to get the best talent. But maybe 70 to 80 is probably a good range as well. Less than that, you really have to have very strong onboarding and learning and development, and coaching and leadership and management. But more than that, and you start to, people are going to get bored very quickly. So it's better to find somebody at that 70-30 split. And the other thing is if somebody's accepting a position in which they've done 100% before, to me, and maybe this is an assumption that's wrong, but if they've done it 100% before, maybe they're not going to be the best fit for a startup or growth stage company. That's definitely a generalization. And I know that, but I think by and large, most of the talent I see in startup and growth stage, they're kind of looking to push to the next level. Right. Mm-hmm. And part of that is they're obviously looking for that growth.
Absolutely.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I want to talk to you a little bit about your process, right? Can you tell us a little bit about your how you identify talent, how you're screening talent, what things are you looking for as an early growth stage company?
Definitely. So if I could generalize it, because obviously many different roles call for many different things, but generally how process works here from the quickest high level is first off sitting down with the hiring manager of the team and really understanding what they're looking for, taking a good understanding of the spec, looking for the most important things to have, they're nice to have, things that they're not looking for, and just really starting to build that commodity before we go out to start to source. We post our jobs online, of course, and we utilize different tools such as like LinkedIn, I've also had to, since again, we are a startup, we're not the most biggest company out here. We're not Facebook, we're not Google or anything just yet. So I've found myself having to try really creative outside of the box ways to really get more of the company branding and the name out there. So I've spoken at like a couple months ago, I did a Twitterverse where I like sat in a room with people and just had a conversation about the business and talked about DE&I and really what we've looked to achieve here. I've sat in on a couple of panels earlier this year as well, just explaining what I do, who we are, and how Maisonette is different. So that's always a part of my process, is just trying creative outside of the box ways to build relationships with people. Because usually once they learn the story, they're like, all right, this is really cool. They're like, oh, I'm actually a parent. This seems really, really cool. Or I'm not a parent, but this still seems very interesting because e-commerce is very cool. So it's always a part of my process to try outside of the box ways from there. And then from that point on is looking at resumes, looking to build relationships. A big part of my process is just really getting to know people. I don't think, me being in recruitment for so long, I always like to focus on quality and quantity. So I tend to speak to a lot of candidates at first to help me get a good understanding of this, what makes a perfect candidate, this what makes a good candidate, this what makes not what we're looking for this position. So a big part of my process is really getting to know people, building relationships, and really understanding their wants, their needs, really what they're looking for, why they're looking for a new opportunity, and how could something like this be a fit. And then of course, selling back to them about what we're looking for, if this opportunity might be a good fit for now, for the future, and really just starting our great relationship from there.
For sure. So one thing that you mentioned that's really interesting to me too, and I think it's going to be valuable, is to understand how much you're really investing in your personal brand and relationships, because I think that that's a trend that I'm seeing that's very effective, that probably not enough recruiters and recruiting managers are really investing in. That just the concept of like doing the panels, getting out there, building real relationships, meeting with people, as an important part of the strategy, opposed to always sitting behind a screen, just looking at resumes and sending out emails, setting up screening calls that are not done in such a way to encourage like real relationships to be developed. So how much of your time is focused on your personal brand, getting out there, building real relationships, versus maybe more old school traditional recruiting, kind of sitting behind the screen, just doing having your team do that kind of like sourcing motion or vetting motion?
Definitely. I would say for me, it's always going to be old school, normal. Like majority of my job, probably just out there looking at resumes, reaching out to people who can I build relationships with. So I would say maybe 80-20. If on a good day, 70-30. Just because I can't speak at stuff every single week, because I don't know if there are that many events even going on within the business, but I do try to do it as actively as I can, so for me, probably around that 70-30, 80-20 at the end of the day. But like I said, it's not just speaking at events. That's just one I've just took it to the extra mile for myself. I've built relationships with some media outlets out there within the industry to kind of tell the story about Maisonette. They've written an article about us. Our employees have written things and they have posted the articles about us, which is through Built-in NYC. So it's just like a number of different media outlets out there that I've tried different ways as well. But to answer your question, probably around 70-30, 80-20.
Yeah, I think that's a really healthy split. And I think more talent acquisition leaders should be doing that.
Absolutely.
Like, there's just so much value. And one thing that I talk with a lot of leaders about, and I'm probably going to start sounding like a broken record on this pretty soon, but you can't really scale relationships. I mean, to some extent you could scale a lot of process, but when it comes to developing deep relationships with people, it's something where you can never get detached and lose your pulse on that as a leader. You have to get in there, get out there, however you want to put it, get in front of people and build real relationships, because that's going to be one of the primary drivers to being effective in our careers, right? Not only opportunities for us as individuals, but referrals, right? Like getting your name out there, getting that recognition. And at the end of the day, like, people want to work for leaders. They want to work for people they respect, like-minded people that maybe share similar values. And that's going to carry even more weight than just a company name, right? If they feel like they know somebody, or somebody knows, through like a third party or something like that, that's ultimately going to be very effective, particularly if you're looking with people that have industry experience.
Yep.
Right. I mean, I feel like the more industry experience matters, even the more that relationships matter. Relationships matter even more, right?
Yep, 100%. And I love what you mentioned about the power of referrals. I think that's one of the most important things that is low-hanging fruit at the end of the day, and it really starts from having great relationships. You don't get referrals if you don't treat your candidates. If you treat your candidates like a number, you have to treat every candidate individually as they are their own person and their own human being and their own candidate at the end of the day. One of my recent hires came from a referral. I built a relationship with the woman. We had a really, really great call. She spoke with our hiring manager. Really lovely conversation, not the perfect fit. And I let her know, this one, I let her know via email. It was like, hey, we really enjoyed speaking with you. This is some of the feedback on why you weren't a good fit. She really appreciated it and sent me her resume of a friend who was an excellent fit for the role and who we actually ended up hiring. So it was just the power of a good relationship at the end of the day.
Yeah. I mean, talk about candidate experience. I feel like, you have candidate experience down if somebody that you passed on for a role is the one giving you the referral.
1,000%.
All right. So what are your secrets? Tell us how you did that.
It's a good relationship. I mean, it is as easy as that sounds. The recruiters that have worked under me or that I worked with, I teach them the values of a positive relationship. Whether someone is a good fit for the role or not, there are many things that you have to do. You really have to get to know them. You have to understand what their wants, what they're looking for, sell back to that. If they speak to someone and they say, I'm not a right fit, they're not a right fit, we get feedback that showcases they're not a good fit, tell them that. Share that with them. Don't ghost them. Don't send a blind email 6 months later saying, oh, hey, we haven't heard it back. We're not a right fit for this role. Follow up in a timely manner. A great example is if a candidate speaks with a hiring manager on Monday, maybe you get feedback by Wednesday. Try to follow up at the end of the week or give it a couple more days after that, but just be sure to follow up and let the person know, because I hear too much in this industry about from candidates who never hear back from their recruiters. They never get any feedback. They go through an interview process. They never hear anything back. 6 months later, they get an email about a job offer. Like, those are things that are just not great experiences. And I've experienced as a candidate myself that, that's my biggest secret. It's just really, really treating each person like they are a person and not just a number because you want to hire them.
For sure. And I think one of the ways that I try to teach junior recruiters this is when you're doing screening calls, don't sound like a robot.
That too.
Like, just don't talk really, really fast and ask questions like this and, note taking. I mean, you're not an automated system.
Yep.
Right. And don't treat people like they're on the other end of talking to an automated system. Like, and there's a lot of, I feel like sales influencers, particularly on LinkedIn, that are like, don't waste your time saying, how was your day or where you located, all this crap. They just talk down on that stuff, but I guess people should do what feels natural. Right. But from my perspective, it's always lead with the human element first, get to know people, get to understand like what they care about, what their values are. That's just very important to develop a good relationship and to create a great experience. So I know we're all moving fast and a lot of times recruiters are moving from calls back to back, but if you lose that human element and that relationship piece, then your conversion rates are going to drop significantly. You're probably going to be less fulfilled with work too. But, from a purely business standpoint, it's just simply less effective to not invest in relationships, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And then God forbid you actually want to hire that person, you have no rapport. They're not gonna be your best friend. They're not gonna explain to you what they're liking about the company, how their other interviews are going. You're not gonna be able to have that rapport. So you have to really take the time. I stress that to every single person that I work with.
They're a lot more likely to drop out because of one little thing. They're not going to tell you what it is. They're going to ghost you, or they're not going to give you deep feedback or tell you the real reasons, right? You lose out on all of that stuff.
We lose out on all that stuff. If I could tell you another quick, great success story of the power of trying something outside of the box to build a relationship. I mentioned a little bit earlier on that I spoke at a Twitterverse. It was a big room of people where I talked about Maisonette, about the business and who we are and the DE&I and just what I've done, within the business of my time here. What happened was maybe 60 or 70 people in this room. And we all know how hard it is to hire engineering talent. There was one engineer that was in that room who applied to our company. And he ended up getting a job here. And he told me after I built a relationship, after over time, he was like, you want to know how I found out about Maisonette? I was in that Twitterverse. And I was like, that blew my mind. That blew my mind. He was like, honestly, Khurram, just hearing you talk about the business, like as you were right in front of me, that stood out so much to me. So he was like, I highly recommend you continue to put yourself out there, get in front of the people. And as you mentioned, James, getting in front of the people, the power of that, obviously. And that's just a very, very successful and lucky story. But like, it's just, you got to try. You got to try.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're being pretty humble when you say lucky. I mean, I think there's a formula there, right? And I think it's about making it repeatable and how do you kind of scale it as much as you can with the understanding that it's never going to be as much at scale as, doing other motions within talent acquisition. Like you have to just invest the time. I think one thing that could be really valuable to the audience is going through how can leaders get on more panels? How can they build these relationships to get these speaking engagements, put themselves out there? I mean, the lowest hanging fruit from my perspective is posting on LinkedIn.
Yep.
Like that is, that's something I do religiously once to twice a day. At this point, I'm amassed a following of around 32,000 people. And I want to grow much more than that, but it's just such a great outlet to share my thoughts and perspective on talent acquisition. But when it comes to speaking engagements, right? How do you get on these things? Like where does somebody start that see, okay, they've listened to you, they see the success stories, they know it works. Yep. What do they do from there?
Honestly, it's research. I found those opportunities that I was able to speak at very luckily was just me doing research and finding where can I speak to people, or where can I get in front of people to speak about DE&I? Because that's a big emphasis for our company. So I went down and Googled different DE&I platforms, DE&I websites where people are congregating to learn about DE&I within the workplace. So that's how it started for me, and just pure research, and then trying to network with people, reaching out to maybe a rep, or reaching out to a contact, or just reaching out to someone within the business and just kind of explaining who I am, and then starting the relationship from there, So that's, for me, it just starts with pure research and just a Google. Just start off that way and then kind of make your way down a rabbit hole, because you just never know what you'll see out there.
So like Googling upcoming events. So did you Google like upcoming DE&I events, or can you yeah,
of course. No, I would say, like, for example, so I live in the New York City area. So I'll Google like DE&I hiring events is one. I'll look up Black engineering talent, Black, for example, or like Black creative talent. And then sometimes you'll see like a website, and then you'll see, oh, they're having events. Or like another big one that's been really good for me in the last couple of months is Slack. Like, because obviously I've used Slack for work, but there are many, many different Slack channels. So I've actually been trying to join as many Slack channels as I possibly can, and then posting in them here and there, just saying, hey, my name's Khurram. I'm a senior manager of recruitment here at Maisonette. We're hiring for some positions. Some people respond, but then you go down rabbit holes from there. Because another woman in one of those groups, she was like, oh, I see that you are a part of this community. Check out this website, remotepoc.com. I've never heard of that before. You should sign up for this website too. So that opens up another channel that I can go down from and see if people are networking or doing events or speaking engagements as well. So
right.
Continue Google.
That's really cool. Yeah, I love that. And you're right. Slack communities are getting more and more powerful, it seems. And there's a lot of Slack communities out there that I think people should be looking for. I mean, I'm part of a couple of communities that definitely have been really, really valuable. And quite honestly, I should probably do more there to look up additional communities for me to join. So yeah, that's really helpful, tactful insight. What I guess, one other topic before we jump off today,
sure.
What is your advice and guidance to people that want to move up in talent acquisition and move into a manager position? What do they need to do in order to earn that role?
It's a very good question. I would say you would have to showcase that you are very flexible. That is one of the most important things that I've learned. And I've learned back in the day, in my early days of recruitment, as a great recruiter can recruit for anything. Like truly, because yes, there are different facets of recruitment. Technology recruitment is very different from traditional business recruitment. I am definitely not as strong as a tech recruiter as I am as a generalist business recruiter, but I have recruited for engineers before. I have hired and had success hiring engineers and product managers before, because it's only about me being flexible and really just like everything. I am a clean slate every single time. I'm here to learn, I'm here to try. So I would say really being adjustable and flexible. On the flip side, not being afraid to make mistakes. You will always make mistakes, whether you are the most tenured recruiter, whether you are a junior recruiter. You cannot have a big head. You know, you have to be willing to make mistakes, try new things, fall flat on your face, but also get right back up and get right back on that horse as well. So, you know, being able to really have a lot of self-awareness as well. Know your strengths, know your weaknesses, but also be open. You know, open to criticism. I am not the most perfect recruiter. I have great habits. I got bad habits. I got a lot of bad habits too. But at the end of the day, you know, if you really want to grow up and make your way down that pure individual contributor path or the managerial path to teach it to others, you got to go through the experiences first, you know? So I think some of those few things are some of the things that I can think about.
I love it. I think one thing that served me well in my career, I don't know why this resonates so much with me, but I'm going to say it just in case it can resonate with others. I think a big part of becoming a senior level and becoming a leader is you need to understand when to be stubborn, and you need to understand when to be the student. You have to have the judgment to understand, like, all right, you got to be stubborn on the goals. If something's important to you and you want to become something, or you want to be a leader, or you want to get to that manager, director, VP level, then you have to be very stubborn on that goal, because it's going to be hard to get there. But at the same time, you have to be very flexible with the path you take, the tactics, being coachable. Those are the things that you need to be adaptable, and being open to being the student, right? So and being wise enough to know the difference between what to be stubborn on and what to be when to be the student, right? Yep.
100%. You know, I can't stress that enough, especially because I've grown into management in my time here. I was an individual contributor when I first joined the business. Shortly thereafter, we grew up the team a little bit, and then I had to jump into management, which is something that was brand new to me. But it was just thinking about teaching people about the experience that I've gone through. I have hired many people. I have lost many job offers. And that's the first thing that I always tell recruiters, and especially when I'm interviewing recruiters, tell me about a time where you dropped an offer. I want to know why and what did you learn from it. A great recruiter will be able to say, this is what I did. I dropped the ball. I made a mistake. A not so great recruiter will just say, well, the person just didn't accept the job. Because there's always so much more to the story than just a person didn't accept the job. Yes, situations do happen, but it's just at the end of the day, you know, I'm looking for self-awareness. I'm looking for someone who can learn, who can be coachable, who can understand that they're going to make mistakes. You know, if we were all perfect recruiters, we'd be billionaires right now. We'd be running our own agencies, consulting, and be billionaires sitting on a beach just doing recruiting in our suite. Doesn't work like that in real life.
Yeah, I love that question, because you're right. It really teaches you two things about the candidate. Are they self-aware? Are they coachable? Right? Because if somebody can't answer that question, or just says, well, I don't, or gives like a one-liner response, then they're not critically thinking about how to get better, right? Or what potentially went wrong. And they're also potentially not coachable, right? If they're not able to be self-aware, then it also makes it harder for you to coach them on what to get better, right? What to get better at. So it's kind of it's a great question, because you can kind of knock out two soft skills, if you will, that are going to determine if somebody's a good fit.
Yep, absolutely. 100%, you know, so those are the things that I've learned, and those are the things that I feel continue to make me give me success, but also things that also continue to help me learn as I grow, over in my career as well.
For sure. Khurram, we're coming up on time here. I just wanted to say, thank you so much for joining us today. This has been a lot of fun.
Yes, likewise. I really appreciate it. I do appreciate you taking the time to invite me, James, and thank you, everybody.
All right. And everybody tuning in, thank you. And we'll see you next time.
All right.